Hi! Today I'm going to show you how to make some little tiny peonies. These peonies are about, I'd say 1.2-ish centimeters in size. So they're kind of big when it comes to making tiny flowers, but peonies have lots of petals and lots of movement, and so it's kind of fun to make them kind of big. So for this, I am going to be using this cutter set right here. This is the petals and these are the leaves. I'm going to be using some ball tools to sort of form the petals into kind of a cup shape. I'm going to be using this, it's actually a silicone tool, but I'm going to be using the dotting tool on the other side of it, not the silicone part, the dotting tool. I've got a tissue blade, I've got an acrylic cutter press here, some cornstarch, and I'm also probably going to be using some poly paste. This is an oven bake adhesive. You can use Sculpey oven bake adhesive as well. It's not really necessary, but I like to use it to attach my flowers even when I'm attaching raw flowers to raw clay, just so I don't have to smash them together too hard to ensure that they're going to stick once baked. So a note about the clay that you're going to be wanting to use for this, the clay consistency. You're going to want to use well-conditioned, pliable clay, but it shouldn't be really soft or really sticky, and it definitely shouldn't be drier or crispy or likely to break. So this is from a new block of Sculpey, and I had to leach this because it was just too sticky. I'm going to be rolling this out into a very thin slab to make the petals. I have an Atlas pasta machine, and I'm probably going to roll them out to an 8, which is the second thinnest setting. And the reason that you want to go so thin is because I want the petals to more or less really retain these shapes as I'm using my ball tool to form them into little cups on a foam mat. Oh, I forgot to mention also, by the way, I'm going to be using a foam mat. That's my bad, sorry about that. When I'm using the ball tools on the foam mat, I want the petals to retain their shape. I don't want them to get too big. I don't want them to get too deformed. And if you're working with clay that's too thick, you're going to have a really hard time. Or you're going to end up with a peony that just has quite thick petals. And we're really going for as thin and as delicate as possible. So I'm just going to lay out enough clay to use this petal cutter about 4 times. Maybe 5. I find that I use about 4 times this cutter just to make a single flower. Just going to dip my cutter in cornstarch and tap off the excess and get to cutting. I just have this little piece of acrylic here. It helps me kind of evenly press down on my cutters. I'm going to give them a good little wiggle. I'm glad that was muted so you couldn't hear me huffing and puffing the entire time. So I'm just pulling off the excess here. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to remove these from my cutting surface with a tissue blade, but I'm not going to just kind of scrape them off like normal. Let me zoom in and I'll show you. So I'm going to slide the tissue blade under the little stems and sort of gently press them on so they're stuck to the blade. And then I'm going to peel them off of my cutting surface. And the reason that I do that is you can even see the little sort of scraps of stuff that are sort of stuck to the side. That's actually clay that is stuck to the glass surface, but when you use your tissue blade to scrape, it can kind of re-stick it to the edges of your petals. And if you don't do that, you should get really clean petals, which is nice because then you don't have to do any cleanup. So once I do that, I'm going to leave them attached to this blade while I work with them on my piece of foam. I'll show you that next. Okay, so this is my foam pad, and you can see that there's kind of a little area over here that's covered in some cornstarch. I like to do that just in case my clay feels like it's sticking to my ball tools a little bit too much. So I just take my ball tools and I kind of dab it over here. I don't want to get a ton of cornstarch on the ball tool, but it can kind of help. So what I do is I use the smallest one on the teeny tiny petals, and I just go in there and I go either in a little circle, or you can go in a little, kind of a little, what is that, like an arch, kind of back and forth. And what I'm trying to do is form these petals. I'm trying to thin them and form them into a little bit of a cup. So you're probably going to have to play around with this to figure out what feels right. Some folks, they go in and they kind of do like a lot of little strokes, lifting their ball tool up as they go. You just kind of have to experiment and see if circles or arches or what feels kind of right to you. So the two smallest ones, which will be the very inside of the flower, I use the smallest ball tool, and then I use the second smallest ball tool for the other ones, because I really want them to be nice and kind of cupped, especially at the edges. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to thin and shape all of my little petals, and like I said, I keep this stuck on my tissue blade for this whole thing because I think it's easier to handle, to maneuver. I really like that it's stuck. And then once I'm done forming them, and I'm going to thin this one out a little more. I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing because I'm talking, so hold on a second. Just want to make sure that the edges are nice and thin. You know, when you look at them from the top, they're not like really thick. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm just going to kind of carefully plop them, pull them, plop them, maneuver them off of the blade. See if I can do the rest. Oh, no, I failed. I'm just barely touching them because I don't want to deform these. So now these are sitting on my piece of foam with the cups facing down. And I find that's a little easier for later when I'm going to grab them to have the cups facing down. So I'm just going to do the rest of the ones that I cut out, and then we'll be ready to start forming the flower. I do want to mention, as I'm working with these, it doesn't matter if they deform in different ways. So these two are mirror images of each other, but I'm going to try to, make this one a little sort of different looking, because flower petals don't look the same. So like these little ones are mirror image, but they really don't look the same once you're done thinning them and cupping them, and the look of them will it'll change based on how you did it. So don't worry if they end up looking quite different from each other. That might even kind of be the goal. I remembered the other day that I used just a sort of medium firmness paintbrush to help get these off, and it was a little easier than my finger. I totally forgot that I was doing this. So if you have kind of something sort of soft, sometimes touching your clay with a paintbrush is a little easier because it just wants to stick to your finger. Okay, the next step in this journey is to create a very high-tech cone shape. And when I say high-tech, I mean not at all. It really doesn't matter if it's deformed or wobbly or whatever. The whole point of this cone is that it gives you something easy to hold, something that you can easily place down on your glass or your surface if you'd like to not hold it anymore, and it gives you something to form the petals around. So I usually create kind of a, okay, that's too pointy, kind of a not so pointy tip. No part of this cone will be showing once you cut the peony off of it. So you can use scrap clay. I'm just using the same color clay. It's possible, actually, sorry, I shouldn't say that no part should show. It's possible that it might show from the top, but I've got the inside petals curved over the top of the cone pretty well, so in mine, none of it will show. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add petals to this cone, going around in a little circle from smallest to largest. This is the smallest one, this is the next, this is the next, and then the ones on the outside are the very outside. You can just use these three if you'd like kind of a smaller peony, or these two, and then the outer layer can be a combination of these two. But I'm going to do like a nice bulky peony. So I'm just going to grab the smallest ones, like this shape here, and start sticking them on the outside of my cone. This is where the little dotting tool comes in handy. You can pick these up with your fingers, but I found that it just works really well to use the dotting tool, press it down about at the base of the little flower petal, between the flower petal and the stem, and then you can gently place it onto the cone. And sometimes it sticks to the metal a little bit, but you just kind of have to squish it on there. This is not going to show. You're going to cut this stuff off, so you can ignore everything that's going on from here down, and it can just be as messy as you like. When I'm starting out, I like to take the first one, and once it's stuck on, I'm just going to press it on there a little bit. I like to kind of bend it over the top, because often when you're looking at peonies from the top, there's just like a really tight bulb of petals right in the center. So I'm going to bend it over the top so when you're looking down you don't ever see the tip. And I'm going to grab another one that's that same shape, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it next to it and slightly overlapping. Not super overlapping, slightly overlapping. And I'm going to bend that one down as well. I'm going to bend this one down further. Oh, good, you get to hear my cat screaming to go outside. So those are both kind of bent down a little bit. And then I'm going to pick up another one of the same shape. And again, I'm just going to go right next to it and slightly overlapping. So this is the whole flower. You just keep, Mr. Ritzbits, sir, can I help you? Sorry about that. I had a cat that really needed to go outside. So what I'm doing is I've placed the third petal, again, slightly overlapped, and I've bent it down just a little, but what we're starting to get from the top is is the center of a peony. So I'm going to go around with the same shape, just slightly overlapping each one, and when you're placing it, you try to place it kind of at the same height. You don't want to place it really high, you don't want to place it really low. They really all want to kind of hit at the same height. And all right, that's doing whatever it wants. And let's see here. You might have to play with it a little bit as you're doing this for the first time. The center can look messy. It's okay. You're gonna be building a whole bunch of flowers around the outside. So I'm going to place one more, even though I could maybe stop there and move on to the next shape. But I'm just going to place one more because I want this one to be really fluffy. So those are all from the smallest petal. Now that I've done that, I'm going to move on to the next size petal, which looks kind of to me like a mitten. Again, I'm just doing a slight overlap, and I'm just placing it right on top. So you're just going to start building this, I don't know, this monstrosity of stems here. And that's okay because it's going to be cut off. And I'm not really pressing them in anymore too much. I'm just kind of going around and placing them at this point. And what I'm starting to do with this tool is I'm starting to try to form a little bit of a neck underneath the flower every time I place a new petal. So I press in and roll this down, make sure it's stuck. But be aware, the more you press down, the more the petal will kind of open, which is fine if you want a nice open peony, but that just makes the whole flower bigger. So sometimes I'll press in and start building that neck, and then I'll just kind of press the petals back down a little. So again, I'm just going around it. That's not overlapping. Stop right there, sir. There we go. And I'm looking to see, like, where did those little mittens start? Over here. Okay, so I still need to place more here. And you can see from the top, like, there's the first layer, and then here's my next one going around. Okay, so here's my first mitten from where I started. So I'm just going to do one more to close this gap right here. Just going to kind of make the neck a little bit. Okay, so now that I got all the way around, I'm going to go in with the next shape, which was these. They're kind of, I don't know, like pointy fan shaped. And I just start, and I'm gonna overlap. I overlapped too far. I'm just gonna overlap the one that I just placed, again, just by a little bit. I tried it without overlapping, and the petals just get really unruly. See, she's starting to look really cute. I'm kind of like forcing it back to overlap. And again, all of this down here, this does not matter. It is going to get removed. It can be as messy as you would like. Here. You can kind of see how it's going. Looks pretty good from the top. Okay, so I've gotten almost all the way around. Here's where I started with that shape, and here's my other one. So I'm going to put one right here to just kind of close it up. I probably should have been counting to see how many I'm using. Not because it matters, just because I'm curious. Okay, all right, I'm just fumbling now. Okay, so if you would like, you can stop there. I want this to be really thick and petal heavy, so I'm gonna actually kind of press in what I've done a little bit. Just kind of make it a little tighter. trying not to make the petals stick too much, but just making it a little tighter. And then I'm going to go in with the last shape, which is like a heart maybe. And again, I'm just going to stick it on and overlap the very last one that I did of the previous shape. And as you're learning this, I would just be as gentle with yourself as you can be, because this is a lot of little persnickety pieces of clay. We made it with the stems because I do find them a lot easier to handle than without. But it's still like you're going to fumble around a lot, you're going to drop them, they're going to go on sideways, you're going to do some that are like they're sticking on way too tall or way too short, and I would just kind of expect to just smash the first several flowers that you make, and just be gentle with yourself, because I've made, I don't know, probably like 25 of these in the last week or so as I've practiced and we've perfected the tool. Look how pretty it's getting, oh my gosh! Okay, so the first one that I placed of that shape is right here, so I'm going to do probably 2 more. We'll see, maybe I'll do 1 and then I'll look at it and see how it looks. Oh yeah, look, like there's a big empty spot right there. 2 more! 2 more it is. Okay, look how pretty she is! Oh my gosh! I love how delicate they are. So once you get your last petal on there, I'm just kind of going around and flattening all these little pieces of stem down, just so they don't come flying off for any reason as I'm working with this. I found that what I like to do is place this tool and a toothpick would work, or any sort of tool that's about this shape or size. I go in and I press just below the petal line on the outside, and I am rolling away from me. And what that's doing is it's kind of, you can see the petals are kind of dropping open a little bit. And I'm starting to try to create like a little bottleneck like this, because it will make it a little easier to cut off of my cone. So I'm just going around and creating a little bottleneck. When the petals flop open really far, I just go and just give them a little pat pat, you know, like, hey little buddy, don't get too big, you know? You're not even gonna fit on my earring if you get too big. Pat, pat, pat. And just go in around the whole thing and just kind of give it a little squish. Okay. Now you can set your peony aside and just kind of leave it until you're ready, or if you would like, you can cut it right off of your cone of clay. What you don't want to do is cut too far up into the petals, because these are really not attached anywhere except down in this little area here. So don't cut too far up, because they'll just fall right off. And yes, I've done this, so don't do what I have done. So I'm just pressing my blade in and trying to be kind of gentle. And there she goes. Now the back looks like this. And you can kind of cut away the excess, or, you know, or you can just not worry about it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this on another piece of clay, and we're going to make an earring. I have cut out some leaves with this cutter here. And, oh no, this, you know what? I should have put them further apart so this would come off in one go, but I didn't. So here we are. But what I'm going to do with these leaves is I'm going to arrange them in like a little circle with the points in the center touching or close, and then you can just stick the peony right in the center of the little circle of leaves. So I'm just going to place these around in a circle, and if you would like, you can use the ball tool to kind of give them a little bit of dimension, but I'm just going to put these flat on the earring or on the clay. So it's just a little circle. You can use 3 or 4, you can use 2. There's lots of different combinations that you can do. And then you can just place the peony right in the center. And it's got this pretty little spray of leaves all around it. And I actually decided that I'm going to make my earrings with a different tool, but I just kind of wanted to show you how those work together. Instead, I decided I wanted to do like a really pretty monotone earring with just all pink. And I used this Bloom Base Botanical Bouquet texture sheet. And I made this so that it would just be an assortment of really pretty little botanical elements, and then you can put a flower right in the center, or I guess right about there on this one. So for this you can either use like one really big flower, and I consider this a pretty big flower, and you can put it in the center, or you can use a couple of little ones. I am going to cut this out before sticking the peony on. I don't think there's a reason for that. I just kind of want to get it all cut out. I couldn't decide which one to do, so I just made a couple more flowers and I'm going to do them both. So I just applied a little bit of Kato poly paste, and that's just so that I don't really have to like really squish the flowers down, because they're so delicate and I don't want to have to squish them down. So let's see which ones I want to put where. So pretty. Oh my goodness, I love them. Okay, I'm gonna bake them and then we'll be back. Okay, I just grabbed this one out of the oven and I really love it, but I realized that I made peonies with, it's really wide, the petals are really open, and I thought just really quick I could show you how to accomplish sort of a tighter peony, I guess. I don't know, this is the same number of petals, or approximately the same number, but it's a lot tighter and smaller, and sometimes you might just want to do a tighter flower if you're doing an arrangement, or maybe you'll want to do one like this and one like this, or you know, something like that. So I thought I would just show you what I do to accomplish that. So this is my little cone, and what I've done is I've done the first layer of all of the smallest shape, and now I'm just going to start in on the next shape, the little mitten shape. So pretty much it's the same, except as I'm applying all of these, rather than just kind of pressing in at the joint, I will kind of roll it up a little. So I'm really just trying to create a tighter flower, and every time I do a flower, a petal, I will kind of try to form it so that it presses in, because you can't just pick up, let's see if I have one. Here's one over here. It's been sitting out for a couple days, so it might crumble. You can't just pick up like a really wide one and just sort of press from the outside, because then the petals on the outside will just kind of stick together and it won't really be tight all the way into the center. So the goal with making a tighter one is to ensure that each petal that you lay just kind of doesn't spray out too much. So I place it, and then I kind of come up here and I kind of push it in, right? I'm not sticking the tip to the inside flowers, but I'm really not letting it kind of open. So you can see it's nice and tight when you look from the top. It's a pretty big difference already between my really open peony and this one. So that's one layer of mitten shapes. Now I'm going to go on to the next shape, the more, I don't know what to call that, like a fan shape? Same thing. I'm laying it out, and as I'm laying it on, I'm just kind of pressing the base of it and kind of pressing it into the center, not letting it open as I work on it. So if you'd like, you can actually stop there. You don't need to do the last one. If you want to do like a half open peony for a floral arrangement like that, or something like that. I'm just gonna do, where did I stop? Right there. I'm just gonna do the next shape all the way around. But again, my goal is to kind of keep it tighter. So that is all of the petals one time around. I think that this is all of the petals, but I might have done kind of 1 1/4 times around as I was working on it. So I just wanted to give you an idea of kind of the different sizes and different peony looks that you can get depending on how you assemble them. Also, if you're trying to keep the peonies kind of cupped in on themselves and closed, as opposed to really opening quite a bit when you cut them, I wouldn't do too much of this around the base, because that's just gonna, where you put it down, you roll away, because that's just gonna make the petals on the outside kind of come open. You can just kind of roll it in your fingers without murdering any of the petals like I almost did there. Okay, that one's got something against me, I think. You can roll it in your fingers, or you can kind of just gently kind of press and make it thinner. You don't even really have to make this particularly thin before you cut through it. There is a smaller, less open version of the peony. That's just going to hit different when you use different floral arrangements. So here's that texture sheet where I placed that I used to make this one. So if you can kind of see, you can sort of look what it looks like to have the smaller leaf, or what is this? It's a flower, not a leaf. The smaller petals, they just don't take up as much space. You can see the decoration behind it a little bit more. On this one, you might even have room to do like a really small one and a medium-sized one, and they would both look really nice on here. There wasn't enough going on in this video already, so I decided to do one more thing. I did a little leaf arrangement so that I could put a few different sizes of peonies on one pair of earrings. So this just has a little bit of, again, I'm using K2 poly paste on the back of these flowers. I'm just smearing it on like so. And since I like a trio, I also am going to include this little bud, and I'll show you how to make that. It's really easy. So to make just a little bud, I'm going to start with my little cone again, and I'm just going to take 2 of my pink flowers and kind of fold them over. Oh, there's a cat hair. Of course there is. Kind of fold them over the top, because what I want is kind of the illusion of kind of multiple petals folded up in here. So I'm just going to do that with 2 petals, and you're gonna just kind of smash them on there. It doesn't have to be precise. Okay, so you can kind of see, it looks like, if I hide the rest, it kind of looks like 3 petals. And then I cut out some of my petals in green, and then I'm just gonna kind of smash maybe 3 or 4 on here, and I really want them to adhere to the pink, because if it's a bud, it's gonna be pretty tight. And I'm just looking for kind of a, I don't know, like an interesting, I want it to look kind of interesting from the top. Oh, there's a big heart-shaped one. Let's see. Oh gosh, oh golly. This is what happens when I don't apply it with my little tool that I can't find right now, because everything's happening on my desk. Absolutely everything is happening. Okay, I found it. I put it somewhere that it shouldn't be. Kind of overlap the green, or you don't really have to. I think I'm just gonna put one more. I'm gonna go for another mitten. Okay, she's looking cute. And then same thing as with the flowers, we just want to kind of make a little bit of a neck, I guess. And then we'll just slice it off the cone. Oh, stick it on the arrangement. I've got some sticky paste on the bottom. Don't like that. There. Okay, and now there's kind of a medium-sized flower and a slightly smaller one and a little bud. And if we wanted, there would have been kind of the big flower. So it's really fun to play around and make all kinds of sizes and shapes with this one set of cutters. Okay, that was a lot. That was a lot to take in. That was a lot of peony action, but here is everything all baked, looking cute. So I've got 3 different designs with the kind of really big and spread out peony. These 2, I used this texture sheet for that really pretty background. And then these 2 here, I used the leaf cutter to make like a little leaf bouquet behind the little arrangements. I really hope that you liked learning about how to make peonies, and please let me know if you have any questions at all about any of the tools here or any of the techniques, and I will do my best to answer them for you. Thank you.